With our size, sophistication, and 40 years experience, we solve complex divorce and family law battles and win your case.
Great. One of the wonderful things that occur with our firm is I have the opportunity to interview some of the experts in the field while they are involved in cases that we've brought in. The individual that I'm going to speak to this afternoon's name is Crystal Boultinghouse. Recently she's had a number of high-interest cases that the television has followed closely. I'd like to ask her a few questions and share with you her views. Hello, Crystal. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
How many high-impact cases have you had recently?
I would say recently I've had at least 10. They tend to be my favorite cases, so I'm drawn to them because you can really help children and protect people.
Did you have an opportunity recently to have a multi-state case involving the FBI, the district attorney, a cult in Utah, and a successful conclusion?
Yes, I did. That would be a case where the family lived here in Los Angeles, and the husband gave the wife an ultimatum that she needed to stop drinking or else they would have to get a divorce. She then took their 2 children from school and drove them to her family who lived in Utah and they were part of a polygamist cult, and they had the children in this environment, secreting them. We had to involve the district attorney who worked with the FBI to stake out where the children were located, and after about 45 days we were very fortunately able to retrieve the children. The FBI here and the DA went to Utah as well as our client, and they got the children back, and so that was very successful, and the children are now safe here in Los Angeles.
Another one of the high-profile cases that got you on television a great deal recently was the Bobby Cutts case, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that's the case of the policeman in Ohio that murdered his wife, and you had a part of the custody case here in Los Angeles, did you not?
We did. This happened about 6 months prior to the unfortunate murder of his pregnant girlfriend over the summer. We were very successful in saving the 9-year-old daughter of our client and Mr. Cutts from having to be in Ohio when all of that was taking place. She had been there for approximately 6 months when our client came in to see us in the beginning of last year, and we were successful in having the child returned to California for a visit, and then we hired a very good psychologist that met with the daughter because she had been reporting abuse by her father and on the phone to her mother, and we were very concerned, and the therapist found that she did have valid and legitimate abuse that she'd experienced and that it was not safe for her to go back to her father at that time. So we brought that into court and did an emergency hearing, and the court granted our request that the daughter would remain here and that the father would not have any contact with her pending the hearing.
The utilization of psychological experts, in this case it was a psychiatrist, was it not?
Yes.
That's one of the techniques in handling custody cases that you use, is it not?
It is, yes. In cases like this, it's very delicate when a child is reporting abuse, so you want to have a therapist or doctor that's very experienced in talking with children so that they can get the truth out from the child. And the courts often like to have the assistance of a therapist because it makes them able to get a more complete picture of what's happening than if it was just an attorney, 2 attorneys arguing. So the use of therapists and psychological evaluators in custody cases is very important.
When did you decide, by that I mean what was the triggering event that assisted you in deciding to want to become a custody domestic violence specialist?
I've always been very passionate about protecting children, and here we have the opportunity to affect where children will live, with what parent, whether or not an abusive parent is able to continue to be abusive with that child. So I think it's very rewarding, and probably the first case that I had that I was able to, it was a domestic violence case as well, and 2 little children, and we were able to protect them from their abusive father. That was so rewarding that I think that probably is what triggered me to want to continue with working on those type of cases.
Tell our audience what it's like to use domestic violence or have to deal with domestic violence in custody cases as a entity in and of itself.
The laws in California for domestic violence are very strong and very protective and very powerful. I've had many cases recently where if the parties are still living together and the spouse that's being abused is going to file for divorce and make out, tell the truth about what she's experienced, then they're afraid that if they do that before they're protected in their household, that their spouse will retaliate and be even more abusive. So I've had several cases where we have gone into court and persuaded the court on a no-notice basis in an emergency situation to either allow the spouse that is being abused to leave the house with the children, or to actually kick out the spouse from the house that is doing the abuse.
As an aside, in the Bobby Cutts case, there was a dispute between the woman who he murdered and himself about who was going to live where and how they were going to get along with each other, and it triggered a murder. And so the real bottom line of it all is that a fear of murder or abuse or being severely beaten is very, very real, and it's important to have that kind of protection in place. Isn't that true?
That is. And the thing about domestic violence is that if it's left unchecked, it only gets worse. It doesn't get better. They're not going to change. If you see the signs right now, then it will get worse. And that's one reason why I like going to court with these cases, because you put it all out in the open. They're no longer allowed to live in closed doors and do the abuse. They are exposed by the court system, and so you can hope that that might change some of these people. There's batterer intervention program that we often request the court to order them to go through, or anger management, and so yes, it's very important.
With our size, sophistication, and 40 years experience, we solve complex divorce and family law battles and win your case.